Night returned to the mountains of Daranghar like an ancient creature spreading wings across the sky, swallowing moonlight and swallowing hope. Haroon stood at the edge of the ashes where the mansion once burned, his breath shaking like broken glass, his throat empty without voice, his eyes hollow from sleepless nights. The villagers watched him from a distance, whispering curses and prayers, believing the shadow spirit was living inside him. Because the fire had not killed the evil, instead it had only opened a doorway, and Haroon was that doorway now. He wanted to run far from the village, but every path twisted back to the burned land. The trees bent unnaturally, their branches crossing the roads, forcing him to return, like the forest itself wanted him, trapped. The villagers refused to speak, with him turning their faces away, their shadows longer than their bodies, as if the world around them was stretching slowly under a curse, and Haroon wondered if they were still real or already puppets of the mansion. Night winds slithered down from the cliffs carrying a faint humming sound, and Haroon recognized the melody. It was the lullaby from the music box in the little girl room, the same lullaby that awakened the dolls and summoned death inside the mansion. The melody drifted through the village, though there was no music box left. Nothing remained from the house except black soil and scorched stones, but the song kept playing and the sound felt alive. Haroon knelt beside the burnt soil and pressed his palm against the ashes. They felt warm, like the house had a pulse beating beneath earth, and suddenly he felt something move under the ground, pushing upward. He pulled his hand away, trembling, staring into the dirt, and a small piece of wood rose slowly through the ashes, a piece of the mansion floorboard, its edges glowing softly as if remembering fire. Then another plank surfaced, then another. Suddenly the ashes shifted, shaking like breath. Haroon stumbled back, shaking his head, refusing to believe what he saw, but the darkness whispered inside his skull, telling him the mansion was rebuilding itself through him, with him, around him, each ash particle a memory, each memory a bone. He turned to run toward the village lights, desperate to warn them, but the villagers stood frozen, their bodies stiff, eyes wide, mouths hanging open, silent, their hair lifting as if wind blew through them. Though the air stood still, and Haroon realized they were sleepwalking, standing awake yet dreaming. Something was speaking to them through the night. He waved his arms, trying to call, but his stolen voice refused to return. He opened his mouth, and a strange whisper escaped, not human but low and ancient, saying, "The house is not dead, the world is its skin." Haroon fell to his knees, terrified, grabbing his throat as the voice crawled out of him, again echoing through the land, calling the mansion back piece by piece. The ground shook harder, ashes dancing upward, forming shapes in the air, pieces of wood crossing stone, pulling into place, walls drawing lines, staircase shadows assembling, and Haroon watched the silhouette of the mansion rise once more, taking form in the darkness, tall and patient like a god being reborn. He ran into the forest branches, scraping his arms, his chest, his legs, roots grabbing his feet, forcing him to fall. He crawled through mud, hearing footsteps behind him, but not footsteps of a human. The sound was slow, uneven, dragging chains, rhythm scraping soil, each step closer. He did not look back. He could not look back. His heart screamed louder than thunder, his skin cold as mountain snow, his lungs burning. He reached a fallen tree trunk and hid behind it, breathing silently, shaking. But the footsteps stopped a few feet away, and Haroon saw a shadow stretch across the ground, long and crooked, twisting like liquid darkness. The shadow bent forward, reaching its arm toward him, and its voice whispered inside his head, "Father, come home." Haroon covered his ears, but the voice did not stop, because it was inside him, not outside. The forest around him began to change, leaves turning black, branches curling into unnatural shapes, roots slithering like snakes. The wind carried laughter, children voices singing a playful tune, yet filled with violence. Haroon stood and ran again until he reached the riverbank, moonlight reflecting on the water, but the moon looked wrong, melted, twisted its shape, long and sharp like a grin, and the water beneath reflected dozens of faces, pale, ghostly, staring at him with hollow eyes, whispering "We are waiting for you." Haroon fell backward, crawling away from the reflection. But the faces rose from the river, like mist forming bodies dripping water, yet moving like smoke children, mothers, fathers, strangers, forming a crowd around him, their eyes glowing faint blue, their voices whispering welcome back. Haroon shook his head, trying to deny everything. But the river spirits surrounded. Him blocking the path, they opened their mouths, and instead of breath, only black smoke escaped. Forming words in the air, "The mansion lives because you live." Haroon pushed through the smoke, running blindly through bushes until he reached the village graveyard stones. Broken, tilted, half sunk into soil ground, uneven fog. Drifting between graves like spirits. Wandering the earth, he stumbled to the center of the cemetery, collapsing. Between graves, panting, praying, someone would wake him from this nightmare. He rested his hand on a grave and the stone cracked beneath, his touch letters shifting, reorganizing, forming new words, reading. Haroon Daranghar. Beneath his name, another line whispered he never left. His blood froze his chest, burning with dread. He ripped his hand away, staring wide-eyed, shaking his head, but more gravestones. Changed writing itself across their surfaces, each stone naming living villagers, each stone marking their future. Deaths, the graveyard rewriting reality. Wind howled through the cemetery, revealing footsteps behind him. He turned slowly and saw a little girl standing in the mist holding a doll with no face. The same girl from the mansion, her hair burnt tips dark, her eyes empty. She lifted her hand, motioning him to follow. Haroon backed away, trembling. The girl whispered with a voice echoing from everywhere. "At once, the house is waiting for you, Father." He tried to run again, but roots burst from the earth, wrapping around his ankles, dragging him down, pulling him across soil. He clawed the ground, trying to stop the movement, but the roots dragged him out of the cemetery and toward the cliff. The mansion silhouette stood fully formed across the mountaintop, windows glowing, faint red breath rising from chimney, though no living thing moved inside. It was alive without life, patient without emotion. Haroon screamed silently as the roots pulled him to the gate, but before he reached the entrance, the roots disappeared as if cut by unseen force, and Haroon hit the ground, rolling across stone, scraping his skin, coughing shards of fear. The mansion doors opened slowly, creaking with sound like bones. Grinding and darkness inside pulsed. Haroon scrambled to his feet, ready to flee. But he saw movement inside, a shadow shifting behind the doorway. Then a tall figure stepped out. It was the father from the photograph. Skin pale, thin, like paper, eyes black, mouth stitched, edges torn like meat. Dripping black liquid, he smiled with no lips, saying, "Welcome back, son. Your place waits inside." Haroon shook violently, taking steps backward, but the father moved toward him, each step silent, like the world bowed beneath his feet. Suddenly, the father vanished, reappearing behind Haroon, whispering into his ear, "You cannot run from what lives in your blood." Haroon swung his arm wildly, trying to hit the figure, but his hand passed through him like smoke, and the father laughed, whispering, "You died inside my house. Now you must finish dying." Haroon ran not toward village, but deeper into forest, trying to escape the path to the cliff, but every direction looped back to the mansion no matter where he turned. Trees bent sideways, grass curved the land. Itself forced him to return, and Haroon knew the curse had reshaped geography. At last, exhausted, he collapsed against a boulder, panting, eyes shaking, tears falling without sound. But then he felt something warm dripping on his shoulder. He looked up and saw words carved into the stone above him. Letters bleeding dark red, reading, "We will eat the world through you, Haroon." He screamed without sound, lifting his hands to wipe the blood, but more letters carved themselves into stone, describing death of villagers' future. Children, generations to be swallowed by shadow because Haroon breathed. Something grabbed Haroon's hair, yanking him backward, his skull hitting the ground, stars exploding across his vision. He opened his eyes to see the little girl's face directly above him, smiling, her eyes swirling with shadows. She whispered, "The house wants to grow bigger, and you are the seed." Haroon scrambled away, landing face first into dirt, pushing himself up, running even though his legs shook like trees in storm. Nights grew longer, forest darker, moon covered by clouds, laughter echoing around him from hundreds of throats. Suddenly, the world froze, wind stopped, insects silenced, river still, trees unmoving, every sound gone. Absolute silence swallowing reality. Haroon heartbeat loud echoing in skull. Then he heard footsteps behind him, slow dragging, scraping something metal on stone, breathing ragged like butchered. Animal he turned and saw a nightmarish creature dragging itself toward him. Its body was tall, thin bones, pressing against broken flesh. Long arms dragging chains behind it each step. Carving into soil, its head twisted. Sideways neck bent its face. A blur of shifting features, eyes changing, mouths appearing and vanishing, voices speaking together in many, languages all whispering the same phrase, return home. Haroon stumbled backward, unable to breathe. Shadow creature lunged forward, arms stretching impossibly long fingers, sharp brushing his skin. He felt ice spread through body like venom. He fell backward, screaming silently, clawing the dirt, trying to escape. The creature leaned down, face inches away, its shifting mouth opening wide, revealing endless darkness, swallowing moonlight. Its breath smelled like centuries of graves, and it whispered, "The world will end and begin inside you." Haroon shook violently, tears streaming. He rolled aside, running into darkness, crashing into low branches, ripping clothes, bleeding from scratches, but he did not stop until he reached the cabin he once stayed in. The door swung open by itself, letting him in. Candle flames rose, though he never lit them, and the air filled with whispering voices, hundreds whispering together. Haroon collapsed against wall, trembling, and suddenly words carved themselves onto the wooden planks around him. The mansion is alive. The village is dying. The shadow is growing. The world is bending. You cannot stop it. Haroon shook head again and again, writing on the floor with trembling fingers. Why me? The walls answered with new carved words, because you believe. Haroon realized truth belief gave strength to shadow, and he had believed more than anyone he had seen. Spirits heard voices, felt darkness, and now the nightmare fed on his mind, turning thought into power. The candle flames bent toward him, forming faces, whispering, "You saw us, you heard us, now we are you." Haroon covered eyes, trying to block visions, but voices grew louder, chanting phrases in languages older than mountains. The air thickened, cabin walls stretched outward, turning into corridors, wooden floor melting, into stone lamps appearing, torches flaming. The cabin was transforming into the mansion. Haroon screamed inside mind, trying to escape cabin door, but door vanished, replaced by hallway, long, silent, alive walls, breathing ceiling, pulsing floor, vibrating with heartbeats. Haroon stood within the mansion again. His legs trembled, eyes wide, throat aching. The hallway stretched forever. Portraits hung along, walls showing faces of strangers, unknown villagers dead, travelers, each portrait watching him, eyes moving, heads turning toward him, mouths opening silently. From the end of hall, the mother spirit walked forward, floating above ground, dress white stained with black shapes, crawling inside fabric, her eyes dark holes. Sobbing endlessly, she reached her hand toward Haroon, whispering, "Come back to us." Haroon backed into wall, shaking as portraits began whispering his name, hundreds of voices overlapping. He closed his eyes, but the world behind his eyelids was worse. Darkness swirling with silhouettes, claws reaching through shadows, piercing his skin without touching him. He gasped for air and inhaled dust made of broken memories. He opened eyes and saw smoke rising from floor, and in that smoke, the children appeared, their feet hovering, their hands clasped, their necks twisted, unnaturally, their empty eyes reflecting Haroon's face. They whispered together, "You are ours." Haroon broke into sprint, running through halls, turning corners, not knowing where he ran, every direction, endless hall after hall, room after room, each doorway leading to another, never-ending loop, voices behind him, louder walls, laughing floors shaking. He burst into a grand hall ceiling, vanished, showing stars swirling like rotating whirlpools, screaming wind pouring through, but instead of space, Haroon saw dozens of other mansions floating in sky, each mansion filled with souls, screaming, pounding walls, begging to escape. And Haroon realized there were endless worlds connected through shadow, not just Daranghar, other lands, other people captured. He collapsed, knees buckling, staring into impossible sky. The father appeared behind him, hand on Haroon, shoulder whispering, "You will open the next world for us." Haroon shivered, skin crawling, throat burning, as father leaned closer, whispering into Haroon ear, "Your silence is the door. The air shook, chandelier above swaying violently, window. Glass shattering, letting in freezing air, voices swirling. Haroon pushed himself up and ran into the nearest room door, slamming behind him walls covered with clocks. Clocks without hands ticking. Without sound controlling, time room felt. Separate from mansion, isolated. Breathing space. Haroon sat on floor shaking, staring at clocks, wondering if he could hide in a place without time, but slowly the clocks began to turn, hands appear ticking. Audible heartbeat replacing silence and numbers changing by themselves, spelling words, your time ends soon. Suddenly, the largest clock opened like a mouth, gears grinding metal teeth, shining, and a tall, faceless figure crawled out, its joints cracking its hands, long, sharp, reaching toward Haroon. He screamed inside and jumped through window, falling out into forest landing, hard rolling downhill leaves, cutting skin rocks, bruising ribs, pain exploding across body, but forest, no longer normal trees. Bent, twisted branches grabbing him like claws. He pushed himself up, breathing heavy body, shaking legs weak, but he forced himself to walk deeper into forest, trying to outrun mansion, reaching clearing where moonlight poured and wind carried voices of lost souls whispering through air. But the clearing held something else, a massive circle of stones 10 feet tall, arranged around ancient pit, each stone carved with swirling marks, glowing faint green runes, shifting, showing images of human sacrifices, screams echoing through stone past. Haroon stepped closer, drawn by force, pit filled with darkness swirling, like storm wind blasting against him, whispering, come. He knew stepping closer was foolish, but he wanted truth needed. Answers, why him, why mansion? Why curse, why silence? He gazed into pit and saw visions swirling. The family never existed. They were made by shadow to lure souls. The mansion was a creature feeding on minds. The village built unknowingly on ancient burial site. The shadow spirit older than mountains, older than sky, fallen from another realm. Haroon chosen because he believed. He screamed inside, head rejecting destiny, but pit roared, wind swirling, pulling. Him closer, gravity vanishing, pulling him inward. Haroon fell into darkness. He landed in pitch black world floor, soft like skin walls. Invisible air freezing, something moving under. His body like slithering worms. Surrounding him countless, whispering voices overlapping. Welcome home.